Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today.
Hey guys, Professor Presbyterian back with another episode of Hey Professor, the show we talk about everything you want to know about healthcare management, business management, and revenue cycle management. I'm your professor, Professor Javon M. H. Presbyterian. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This is going to be another vlog episode. It's going to be an episode about bad management versus bad employees. Let's start with bad management. We all feel like we've had a bad manager now and again, whether we're in retail or whether we're in a hospital setting, whether we're working at a bank. We've had people that were over us that we felt just were not adequate. And whether we're right or wrong, there are some key things that we can kind of suss out and say, these are the kind of things that happen, that come from a bad management or a bad leader. Following this, we'll go over what a bad employee is. But like I said, let's start with bad management. A bad leader or manager will give criticism that is not constructive. A good leader will not only tell you what you did wrong, but will give you opportunities or will give you examples of how to improve upon that. The honest truth is your leader or your manager is really in a position of servitude. It may not seem that way because they're telling you what to do, but the truth is that they are serving you. It's kind of a system. In that way, if you fail, then they fail. A bad manager never takes blame or never understands their part in the process. A bad manager may deflect and just say that it's all about you and that you've always failed them and that you've always done the task poorly in some way, without realizing that maybe they set you up to fail or that they haven't supported you as well as they should have. A bad manager is the type of manager that will tell you that you failed in a task without really giving you any kind of support in that task, without giving you any kind of training, any clear directions, any clear expectations of what you should be doing. But when you haven't done it, whatever it is, then you failed them. That's a bad manager. While it is to be expected to a certain degree that the accomplishments of the team may become the accomplishments of the leader, it is a sign of bad management if your manager or if your leadership is never able to give you credit or never able to give credit to the employees or share in that credit and in that glory with the employees when something positive has occurred. If your staff member comes up with an idea, your supervisor comes up with an idea, or they stay up all night pulling an all-nighter to get the result that's needed, and yet the manager or the leader just sits there and takes all the glory, that's a bad manager. A bad manager is never available when you need them. I'm not saying that they're going to be available to you 24/7. It is not the expectation that they're going to sit around waiting for you to need something. That doesn't make any sense. They are working, they are leaders, they are doing things too. But if you always need them and they're never there, if you're trying to reach out, trying to communicate, and they're never able to be found, reached, touched, talked to, or even emailed, that's a problem. That's a bad manager. We all have needs and wants, every last one of us. But within reason, they should be able to be met in the workplace. If the staff does not have reasonable accommodations in order to perform their jobs and their tasks adequately, the manager has probably failed. Now, that alone does not make them a bad manager, but it can be a sign of bad management. I'm not saying that work is about feelings. If nothing else, you might see my other video where I said, nobody cares how you feel. I'm not trying to be smart, but it's not about that. But a good manager should be able to understand where you're coming from as a staff member or a subordinate and be able to kind of, empathize with you. People go through things. There should be a degree of flexibility. If you have a rigid, inflexible management, you might have a bad manager. If your manager is inconsistent, very wishy-washy, they're kind of flighty, sometimes they may tell you one thing and then follow through with something completely separate. Or if that manager may come to you and say, I need you to take care of this, but then change their mind and not communicate that with you, you may have a bad manager. If your manager sets expectations, but while you're working on them, changes them without communicating that with you, you may have a bad manager. Communication is key. And one of the signs of bad management is if your manager is not communicating with you properly, consistently, about what they need from you, and getting back to you with what you need from them in order for them to perform their tasks. If your manager is using non-neutral statements or non-neutral communication, if your manager tends to give you vague, threatening generalizations, that's a bad manager. That does not inspire confidence. That does not inspire a sense of camaraderie or teamwork. That just makes you want to leave. You may have a bad manager. Switching gears for a moment, we're going to talk about what makes a bad employee. A lot of managers out there will say that their employees are bad, but sometimes you have to have the onus and you have to reflect upon yourself as a leader to make sure that you're doing everything that you can. There are going to be times where it's outside of your control and the employees truly are just bad employees, and maybe they need to be either let go, retrained, disciplined, or dealt with. But that's not always the case. But let's go over some instances where they are. If you are a leader and your staff is just very rigid, very inflexible, and just has a general lack of desire to make any kind of changes, even when you provided them with support, you may have a bad employee. If your employee is inconsistent with their timeliness, constantly late, constantly leaving early, constantly sick, the truth is, even if there are reasons, those reasons kind of don't matter after a while. And once it reaches the point where it's affecting the productivity of the department and the department's ability to produce, you may have a bad employee. If you have an employee who seems to want to instigate, who is not involved in issues of discipline, but stays in the background, stoking the fire, merely for the purpose of trying to create drama within the department, you may have a bad employee. Having a job is great. It could be better. We could all be paid more. We could all have better benefits and perks. But honestly, the fact that we're employed, I think we should all be grateful for. If your staff member is just perpetually, chronically ungrateful, even in the face of perks or things that are not really necessary, like buying them food, you may have a bad employee. And it does happen from time to time. You'll have an employee that just says, look at this pizza you bought, or look at this juice. You may have a bad employee if they're just chronically ungrateful for the position that they're in. If you have introduced new tasks and new roles in your organization or in your department that comes with things that some people could consider a perk. For instance, if a certain employee learns a task that then allows them to work remotely, but other employees are not willing to learn that task, even when offered to be taught, you may have a bad employee. The employee is not interested in evolving with the department or with the organization. The employee is only interested in not being there physically. As stated previously, we all want more. We all want to make more. We all want to do better. It should be understood, however, that getting those things requires something from us, usually an evolution of ourselves. If we're now unable to evolve, then maybe we don't deserve those things. If you have staff that chronically complain about wanting to get paid more, but won't take on tasks, responsibilities, or roles that will allow them to evolve and then command a higher salary or a higher income, you may have bad staff. Thinking about it, this is kind of going to go along. It may end up having a part 2 in the future. So again, I am your professor, Professor Presbury. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character That is the true goal of education.